What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the Pixelists Podcast, the podcast about all the nerdy things we love and enjoy. Now in our cold open era, as one of our commenters put it recently, and I love
Cold
that, so I'm
open
taking
era.
it. As
I love
always,
it.
we're your hosts. That's Blake. I'm Will, and today we're here to talk a little worlds beyond number.
Leave it to the. Oh, sorry.
Nope, no, go ahead, go ahead.
As it goes. Sometimes I just don't know when you're done or when you got more to say. So which sounds like a slight, and I don't mean it that way. All I was trying to say was leave it to the commentators, commenters, commentators,
Commenters, I think, but
yeah,
commentators, I guess, also works.
yeah, to have infinitely more interesting things to say than we do about ourselves.
Yeah, we're really
But-
coasting off our community for the most part for
Yeah.
just everything we do.
Yeah, they're gonna set up a Patreon for us to sign up for.
Please
So-
keep supporting our content and giving us good things to talk about.
But as you were saying, talking.
Yeah, just episode 30 was all I was going to say. The Snake, I believe, is called.
Was this 30 or was it 29? Again,
I wrote 30, but that does not mean that that's correct because that's just what I wrote in my notes.
I think you're probably right. I think it's progressing. It is 30. You're right. We're just getting into it, man. The campaign is just we're 30 episodes deep now. It's kind of crazy to think about.
It really is, man. Over a year in, 30 deep. It feels like 2 months ago started, kind of.
I know. It feels like a long time, but also like yesterday.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough.
Yeah.
But
yeah, episode 30 and maybe the penultimate episode. I still haven't managed to find confirmation on that, but a juicy episode nonetheless. And before we dive into it, just a couple of quick regularly scheduled announcements here for you. As always, join the Discord. We're always, trying to rope more of you Worlds Beyond people into there to join us. And speaking of the Discord, we got two things going on right now. First, one is always happening, so I guess it's not worth mention, but we have our Thursday night watch parties for Critical Role, which right now is being helmed by Brennan Lee Mulligan. So again, I'm probably not even speaking to a subset of our community that exists, but if you are a Worlds Beyond fan and you aren't a Critical Role fan, perfect time to jump in because Brennan can make that transition seamless for you.
for clarity, Brennan is helming Critical Role, not our Discord watch parties. Though, Brennan, I know you watch all our stuff.
It'd be cool if you did.
Yeah, you're welcome. We'll just give you the channel if you want it.
Yeah.
So
for real,
Yeah.
Whatever you want, it's yours.
Yeah. And then the second announcement?
The second announcement was just also Brennan Lee Mulligan coded, is we are currently having our Sunday Fun Day watch parties, which is every Sunday night we get together and watch something. And right now we are doing Calamity, which was the previous time Brennan helmed Critical Role. 4-episode miniseries. So yesterday we kicked that off with part 1. We will do another episode each subsequent Sunday. So if you missed the last one, come and hang out with us for the remaining 3. Always a good time. And yeah, that's all I got in terms of, I think, announcements.
I was just gonna add, it's a rarity we get the cozy late night recording, which is what we're doing.
Yes, actually, I couldn't even tell you the last time we did this.
It's been a while.
I guess it's been a hot minute.
So, nothing new here for anyone watching or listening. We just like pointing out random details. It is nighttime as we record.
But it is kind of a different vibe. So I'm here for it.
I wish I had some Andes while we were just all of a sudden it hit me, dude. So I was like, bro, if I had some Andes it'd probably be really distracting, honestly. But
shoveling our mouths full.
I'm just gonna say there was a phase where like we had Andes like every night. Do you know how much sugar's in one thing of Andes? Bro, it's like 100 grams.
I believe it, dude, because I just recently saw, I don't remember which website it was on, but an Andes like piece of content, like maybe on Instagram or something. And the girl was describing how they make their key lime pie like concrete or whatever.
Yeah.
And they literally put 2 whole entire slices of pie into the thing and like mix it up with, a gallon of ice cream, and I'm like, that's literally 3,000 calories.
Uh, and yes, I will
Yeah,
be eating
I
that.
would. Easy.
I
Yeah.
am going to eat the whole thing. So
But
anyway,
I'm with you, man. Andy's is so good.
it is.
I
It
was
is.
um I was just craving a little sweet treat as well. Not specifically Andy's, but I had that same craving. So
Yeah, I
rough.
looked through my pantry. You know that feeling when it's like late at night and you open your pantry and then you open the fridge and then
And
you
there's
go
just
back to the
yep.
pantry and you're just like, all right,
Okay, well, to bed
well,
I go, I guess.
yeah. Anywho, I
Anywho,
digress.
yeah. um
Episode 30. You want to kick us off?
yeah, let's do it. So for those of you who are new or just need a refresher on the drill here, we are going to be recapping the episode before we dive into our typical discussion of it. We cut that recap out, host it separately for y'all's viewing convenience. So if you find yourself just on the recap but want to hear our full thoughts, there will be a link down into the description below. But again, this is episode 30, I believe, called The Snake, of Worlds Beyond Number. So we pick up, right where we left off with this cliffhanger of Ursulon with Hyrule, Socorro, and Badze, and Socorro just literally decapitated Hyrule. Whilst at the same time, Badze starts to like grapple Ursulon. And we kick off with Brennan saying, hey, roll initiative. So Lou rolls and he is first to act, but he has to first make a strength saving throw and he fails. And Brennan describes that like Badze's chest has like literally opened up. And the way I'm picturing it is like her ribs are like reaching around Ursulon, like pulling him into her. And Ursulon fails that check, so he is getting pulled into her. She screams that we don't mean you any harm. Ursulon insight checks this, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm still not feeling great about this, given everything
Yeah, I
that's
don't
going
know.
on."
I don't know about
And
this.
yeah, I don't know. He then uses his action to try and escape, which he fails again. So he's still just in Badze's clutches. Meanwhile, Socorro, Brendan describes as like releasing spores from his body, and he takes the body of Hyrule, which again is decapitated, and basically lunges with it into like the little hot spring where they were hanging out. And meanwhile, Hyrule's head is like screaming from underwater. I'm not sure if that's like death throes or if he's still somehow in there somehow, but that's what's going on. And then we swap scenes to Ame and the fox. And they're basically looking around the palace for other spirits that she could maybe talk to, or perhaps Neef, Indri's apprentice. But she doesn't find either of those things until the fox suddenly just takes off because he smells something. And Ame realizes that she's kind of in a part of the keep that she hasn't been to before, but it's like the main keep. But she kind of, or at least Brennan describes it as someplace you only really get to by aimlessly meandering. And the fox runs up to this door where outside is like a bunch of food that's half eaten. I pictured it like room service at a hotel after you eat, you kind of place it outside. That's what it was. So the fox, of course, wants to chow down, but Ame knocks on the door and is like, hey, my fox is trying to get your food. You might want to like bring it in there. And the door cracks open, and Ame sees like one of the most beautiful people she's ever seen. A tall, slender, I actually don't know if we know the gender of this person. Do you recall?
I thought it was a man, but I actually don't know. I almost feel like Brennan was a little coy about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I may be misremembering.
Okay. Yeah, I don't remember either, but we'll just use they them for now.
Yeah.
So this beautiful person that is wearing like robes and also has these interesting tattoos, and Ame notices that they're clearly battling a cold, like sniffing, sneezing, that type of thing. And this person says, oh, like you're one of the four great witches. And Ame's like, four? What do you mean? But kind of just lets that slide. And the stranger says, oh, sorry, I don't want to get you sick. My name is Tefmet. And Ame's like, well, hey, you know what? I can actually help with that. Like, I can help you with your cold. And Tefmet is cautious because Indri had told them to remain in their quarters until after the conclave was over. And Ame says, no, it's fine. It's easy for me to help you. And so Ame then kind of invites herself in for the most part and starts to use her witchcraft and herbalism to craft like a quick tea to help Tefmet get better. And it instantly does. Like it instantly alleviates her symptoms. Um, Ame's then like, hey, how'd you get to the North Pole? And Tefmet's like, whoa, the North Pole? Like that's where we are? And she has some sort of like magical device where clearly this was like a eureka moment for her and or them, and she walks over and like enters new coordinates and it's like, oh, the North Pole, okay, this makes sense now. And she's like, yeah, I just got here via like a gate spell. And Ame's like, oh, okay, yeah, well, I'm Ame, the Witch of the World's Heart, Rin's successor, and this conclave is actually about voting on my destruction. She just kind of trauma dumps, and Tefmet's like horrified at this. And Ame quickly picks up on the fact that Tefmet is a wizard, and she's like, hey, how come your name doesn't start with an S? And the mood like instantly shifts, and Tefmet is like, why would I have an S name? And Ame's like, oh, I just thought that's like how it worked. And Tefmet gets really awkward and nervous at this point. And Ame's like, hey, just so you know, I don't have any like direct ties or loyalty to the Citadel. And Tefmet's still like, you know what? Great meeting you. Thanks for helping me. And kind of like shoving her out of the room. And so she gets out of the room, door closes. But Ame says, like, she kind of knocks and whispers through the door, I have friends who are Antivalists too. And she rolls a really high deception. So the door creaks open, and Tefmet just says, congratulations on knowing Antivalists. Like, I hope nothing but the best for you, and closes the door again. At this point, we cut to Suvi, who is still in the Library of Stars, watching that memory of Hikea that we last saw her watch. The memory ends, and the little spider thing like finishes collecting it, along with all the memories of Yorin that Suvi had pulled up. And Suvi is trying to like remember what was in that memory of Hikea, and she like tries to emulate the language that she heard, which was the language of the spirits. And as soon as she does that, the spider like walks back up to her and starts playing that memory again, like as if it was like answering her call, kind of. So that excites Suvi. And meanwhile, the spider then goes back to the music box, and all the little scorpion things start returning to the music box as well. And as they do, the spider like disassembles them, puts them back into the music box, and then kind of like waits for Suvi's next order, if you will. And Suvi, seemingly kind of like done with business here, the spider taps on the box again. The music starts playing in reverse, and now all the rest of these scorpions start rushing up from inside all the wells they went into, and repeat the process. The spider disassembles the scorpions, puts them back in the box, and then finally disassembles itself, and like turns itself into like an emblem that's on the box. So Suvi is now left with one last problem, where she broke the knock spell on this door. So there's really no way for her to replicate that to make it seem as if no one was ever in here. So she ultimately gets this idea to bring out one of her ink demons, Vandal, and lets him out and basically says, hey, like, go crazy in the library. Don't break anything, but go nuts. And he starts spewing red ink and graffiti everywhere. And Suvi says, okay, now come down the hallway all the way back to my room and just go crazy the whole way. And also you need to mark me, like get me with the ink, write graffiti on me. And she's hoping that this will make it look like it was all Vandal of his own volition. And so after that's complete, Suvi starts kind of performatively cleaning up the hallway in the hopes that somebody will, walk in and catch her, and she can explain like, oh, this happened. And so Brennan calls for a luck check for this plan of hers. And she actually rolls a 19, which is good. And just about this time, Indri walks into the hallway to see all of this. And I'll pass it to you for there.
Yeah, well, Indri, for all her composure, does not have it in this moment. She has Costa with her companion, and she also has Neef with her as well. And she is immediately furious. With this 19 luck check, we also have Ame, who's arriving. I think Brendan describes like this, sort of like central tower, almost of like these three paths converging. And so the three of them these three parties all arrive at the exact same moment. Indri is immediately like, what is the meaning of this? What happened? What's going on? Ame is also like, dude, what did you do? And Brennan asks for a deception check, and already tells Aabria that, hey, there's 3 possible outcomes from this. So if you want the best possible outcome, here's what you need to roll. Ame has a very slight guidance, and we do in fact get that incredibly high deception roll. Aabria, by the way, mentions that she is grateful she finally got new dice after all of the previous 2 arcs rolling terribly. So she has this amazing roll, and she basically pretends like, my ink demon got out. It just, slathered its ink everywhere. I'm so sorry. I can't believe it. And there is this great description from Brennan of Indri being so really like disturbed by Abria's buffoonery, as he puts it, that surely this could not be a ploy to outwit her, and immediately trusts that this is in fact what happened. Still angry though, she asks, has the ink demon been rebottled? And Bria's like, yeah, or excuse me, Suvi's like, yes, it won't happen again. And Indri's like, okay, Neef, clean all this up. And she just angrily walks away. Brennan, by the way, above the board, mentions that if the middle outcome was that Indri would have been deceived, but Vandal would have been destroyed as a result, which didn't happen, thankfully. Ame is immediately like, oh my gosh, what is going on? And Suvi basically gives, they each sort of give like a data dump of what they've experienced in the most recent time since they left the dinner. First of all, Ame talks about this wizard that they encountered, most notably the comment around one of the 4 great witches, to which Suvi is like, is it possible Indri already like let slip the plan to this wizard? Like already like introduced the witches as the 4 great witches knowing that you'd be destroyed? To which Ame thinks, yeah, that's probably a good explanation. And then meanwhile, for Suvi explains that Hakea's wand is likely being kept in that tower that's part of the main keep that she saw in the distance when she saw the age-old memory of her ending this quest. Brennan also mentions that wands aren't really used much anymore. Most people use staves because they're easier to enchant. Which this certainly lines up with the fact that Hakea is as old as she is. They decide that they should probably go maybe investigate it, but before they do, they're like, hey, by the way, where's Ursulon? And fortunately, the fox is like, I know how to go find him. He's over at Hakea's grove. And they're like, all right, let's go find him. Surely nothing bad has happened. Which we then cut over to Ursulon, who is in the stomach in pure darkness. He struggles, has a strength check, I think a strength saving throw that I think he rolled only a 7. I think he needs new dice also. Strongest man in Silbury can't get over a 10 on strength checks. And struggles so much and for such a long period of time that eventually becomes sober. And then he opens his eyes and he's standing within a grove I think that Brennan describes of like white bark or almost like bone colored bark of some kind. And up the path of this grove is I can't remember if it was like a small cottage or like a small shed, but there's like an overhang and then like a well. And there is a figure standing at the well who Ursulon realizes this is the man in black. He approaches as the stranger in the night, reaches down and pulls out a bucket from the well and offers Ursulon a drink, to which Ursulon obliges and is basically like, what's going on? And his first thought is, am I dead? Like, am I back in the spirit world? And the pilgrim under the stars basically says, hey, you're not dead. This is the place that Badze brought me to when I needed to lay low for a while after being part of a mission to kill someone, basically. To which Ursulon says, "Was that Grandmother Rin?" And he admits that yes, it was, and that he had failed in his mission. There's a bit more information, like big picture stuff that the pilgrim gives, notably that he's had a vision of a champion that was the son of a great bear, the great bear, who's presumably Ursulon. He mentions that when he smelled Ursulon, he knew that he was in fact the same character from his vision. And he offers to Ursulon a sword that he unbuckles from his hip, that falls to the ground. A sword that I think Brennan describes as being like wrapped in leathers of like black with like a silver scabbard, maybe. I can't remember, but basically describes as like pure moonlight is what it looks like. And the stranger says that according to this vision, the next time he picks up his sword, it won't bode well for him. Maybe even implying maybe it would lead to his end. But he asks Ursulon on his behalf to pick up the sword and to become his champion. And basically says like there's going to be much sorrow if you don't do this. Ursulon asks, if I do this, will the two people in my care have to die, Ame and Suvi? To which the pilgrim says, yes, they will. Ursulon immediately drops the blade, says, I won't do this. The stranger of the night basically says, okay, then though we'll always be brothers, the next time we meet, we will meet as foes. But if you'll give me one last gesture of kindness, if you'll put the sword back up on my belt buckle, since I can't pick it up myself. To which Ursulon does, and as he does this, he has an insight check, and he notices a pattern of chalices on the leather vest of this character, which he recognizes to be the same tattoo of the chalice that was on the back of the neck of Captain Imlis from episode 2, I believe. So a major callback from that. And I think that's where the episode ends.
Yeah.
I can't remember anything else. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
That's where episode 30 ends. The snake. And if you're watching just our recap, click the description link below to get our full discussion, and also let us know what you thought as well. So
Yes. Well done, my friend.
I was like, before I started doing the recap, I was like, yeah, my section's like 30 minutes. I'm just going to knock this out in a couple minutes. And then 10 minutes later, as it goes.
That's always how it goes.
Yeah. So
I got a few things I want to touch on for our discussion here. But the first is when I saw that this episode was called The Snake, I assumed that it was going to feature Hakea's familiar because her familiar is that big snake. But then that wasn't in this episode at all. So I'm guessing it alludes to like a traitor, like maybe like given like, which could imply stuff with the whole Ursulon situation, the fact that Badze and Socorro are doing this, or it could refer to the Antivalon.
Yeah. I think all the above, but more on the nose, it refers to the conversation of Ame and the fox in this episode, where the fox basically asked something like, why do people talk that way? And Ame was like, well, basically being they're not being forthcoming sometimes. And I guess the fox's analogy was like, oh, it's like when you're in like reedy water, but there's a snake in there.
That's right. I forgot about that conversation between them.
It's probably not that though.
That makes sense.
We have like 20 minutes. What could it be?
Yeah. Well, tune in next time, guys.
Yeah.
For more deep cut analysis.
But there are layers beneath the surface, though. I mean, there was Badze and Socorro. There was interesting stuff with Heinroll, by the way. I want to come back to that.
Yeah.
Something interesting with the Antivalist, and the Citadel being mentioned.
And then Ursulon kind of, I mean, he didn't betray them, but he kind of had a window to to become a snake. A lot of let's just go in chronological order here. You said there's something you wanted to mention about Heinrul.
Well, the impression I got was that maybe he can't be killed by just mortal means, for lack of a better phrase, because the head was pushed into the water and then the body was thrown in the water. And I don't think it was death throes. I think it was Hyrule, like drunken Hyrule, like screaming from under the water.
Yeah.
And they put him in the water so that it wouldn't wake Hakea.
That's the impression I got, was that like he wasn't dead yet, and
Yeah.
Sakura was trying to either A, finish the job, or B,
Right.
quell the noise to some, like, handle the body as well as the head. Which there's a lot we don't know, so it's hard to say, especially with whatever weird magical rules may be in place in this place and also between spirits in that way. But we know, at least for the most part, spirits on Ursulon, which maybe it's not fair to call Ursulon and Hyrule on the same level, but like Ursulon can get killed by a sword,
Right.
So
Right.
I'm curious, are you leaning more towards that Hyrule's for sure gone and Sakura was cleaning, like finishing the mess? Or do you think there's a chance like he's still alive and they're just trying to keep him quiet for now?
I don't think he's still alive.
Yeah, I don't either.
But I don't think I think it was more complicated than just chop the head off. He's dead. Like there was definitely some like atmospheric, oh man, that Brennan was pulling
Yeah.
in that. So, and pretty mighty warrior too. So I could get there being like something more than just like, continuing to fight for life, I guess. But
Yeah.
I think he's dead now, would be my guess.
Yeah, I would agree. It's kind of like the least of the concerns, but I'm curious how they're gonna. I think we maybe talked about this last time, but how they're gonna explain that to
Mhm.
Hakea, or not even Hakea, I guess, but the grimoire. I'm sure she's not gonna be very happy with one of her retinue being decapitated.
Yeah,
But I wonder if they'll just, if like no one will say anything, it'll just be like, "Where's Hyrule?" You know. But yeah. Well, I said chronological order, so I don't know if we, not that we need to, but should we just launch into Ursulon or come back to that at the
Yeah.
end?
Let's go into Ursulon.
Okay, because I feel like that's the most I have to talk about too. Is just like
Yeah.
everything from that scene with the stranger.
Yeah, there's the prophecy I guess he has of
Yeah.
I think it was implying like his own death. Like maybe he was shown like the next time he holds his blade will be his death.
Yeah.
And
Okay, yeah.
he
Okay. I was
can't-
gonna talk to you about that because, and this pure speculation on my point, but given the other pieces we had gotten there, we know that he tried to take out Grandmother Rin,
Right.
failed, but wounded her, and
Right.
I think maybe this was in the children's adventure, but we get a little peek into that night, like when she returns and she's really injured.
Oh.
We don't learn any like lore or anything, but like that was one of the like scenes in the children's adventures that night when Grandmother Rin comes back. So cool to have more insight that, oh, that was the stranger.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm wondering if whatever that is with the stranger, where next time I draw my sword, something bad's gonna happen to me. Could that be what Rin did to him? Like in retribution, like, the whole thing that
Mm,
with witches, and Brennan made a
yeah.
big deal out of it that time Suvi grabbed Ame. Like,
Yeah.
could whatever that be Rin's doing, or do you think it's unrelated?
I could definitely see it being like a retribution. Like it fits also like the witchy theme of like a curse, I guess.
Yeah.
So maybe in this like incredible or moment of near death, it was like this, curse of the next time you hold your blade, it'll be your undoing.
Yeah.
But it also seems like, even unrelated to Ren, it seems like he's been privy to some visions of some kind. One, the great Ursulon leading as this like mighty warrior, and then the other implication of his death. So I'm also wondering like the origination of those things.
Yeah. And also just whatever was the inciting incident for why he's doing any of this. Because he did, and not that, who knows if we can trust him, but he made it seem as if him having to attack Rin was regrettable. Like, like in a perfect world, I wish I didn't have to do that, but I did have to do it.
Yeah,
Like
he
it
did
wasn't
seem
just
that way.
like
Yeah,
I hate Grandmother Wren. It's like no, I gotta do this. So
yeah,
like, was there a vision involved in that? Because what he said is his goal was to restore balance between the spirit world and the human world,
right.
which that's like Ren's entire domain.
Right.
So that doesn't make sense to me because
I
Ren is
mean,
all about balance between those two worlds. So maybe they have different definitions of balance, I guess would be like a really charitable way to look at it, but I don't know
let
if
me
I
let
buy that.
me, let me put it this way. Just looking at our political system, the people who all say they all want what's best have very different takes on how to get
True.
there. So I could see like very much an understanding. It's an understandable villain. Like it's like Thanos. You see how they got to where they are in their decision making, though it's still wrong. I think what would be another interesting take would be if Grandmother Ren and now Ame are actually like we're the good guys are actually they're the ones leading the world on towards its own like destruction. Like I think that's a more interesting story note, but either way, it doesn't really throw me that they both want the same things just because, you know. But I don't know.
Yeah. So with that thought you were just saying, do you mean as if like unintentionally, like
Yeah.
they don't
No,
know that like this balance that they're searching for is actually going to lead to destruction type of thing?
it's yeah. I wish I had like a good example from like mass media, but like yeah, like the good guys knowing they think they're doing the right thing, but actually what they're doing is going to end the world. So like I think that's an interesting story. That'd be an interesting twist if like the stranger who's presumed evil for wanting to kill Grandmother Wren actually was going to do the thing that would have saved the world despite being a pretty,
Interesting.
suspicious character. I'm not saying that is the case. I'm just
Yeah.
saying for future story notes, I think it'd be interesting if that's the direction Brennan took.
I get what you're saying, and I'm thinking like it could be a situation where they're all looking at the same problem and they're seeing different solutions to it, and like almost as if Ren's is too idealistic. I'm pulling together a couple different threads here because we've had conversations similar to why the Coven of Elders didn't see eye to eye with Ren.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming this is the same thing, where, and I'm taking some leaps here, but it's basically the world of wizards and humans are like taking too much of the pie, like
Yeah.
especially as the Citadel gets more powerful and they do more egregious things, like that is edging out the world of the spirits like more and more. So in Rin's mind, maybe like I think she recognized that too, and she's trying to maintain the balance, but in the spirits and the rest of the coven's eyes, it's like Rin, like that's never gonna work. Like what
Yeah.
these humans do. Like there's no kumbaya here. Like you're naive. We got to just get rid of them. So to your point of like, I think what you're saying could be true, but maybe that like Rin really did think she could do it. Whereas everyone else is like, that is so stupid. Like that's never going to work type of thing.
Yeah, I could see something like that for sure.
And that was a
Either
big old
way,
yap fest, but hopefully you
no,
guys.
I mean, either way, it's a really intriguing conversation. Um, I kind of wonder what have happened if Ursulon was like when he asked him to pick a sword up for him, he was like, "I'm good."
Yeah. Yeah. I was surprised he did
uh,
it. I'm kind of glad he did it though. But,
yeah.
cause, did we find out what that watch actually does yet?
Oh, that's the detail. I was like, when I was finishing the recap, I was like, "There's something else that
Yeah.
happened."
I forgot
And
until just now.
yeah, we don't. I don't think we know what the watch does. But for people listening, I totally missed this in the recap because I just blanked at the very end. He asked for a gift or an answer to a question, and Ursulon said a gift, and he gave him this silver pocket watch. But I don't think he's had time to inspect it yet.
I was so glad he picked a gift because that's like a tangible benefit in some way or another. Because I was worried, especially with spirits, especially with one this powerful. like Ursulon would have to like ask a question that couldn't be like, like you would have to ask such a good question to get like actionable intel there.
Yeah.
And Ursulon doesn't even, the position he's in, doesn't really know a good question to ask. So I was
Yeah.
glad he picked Gift. But yeah, I was okay. So the stranger we know can't wield his sword. Now, presumably, that's a big reason he wants a champion so that he can still kind of
Yeah.
inflict his will, kind of a workaround that. He saw a vision of Ursulon. One, do we trust that? I don't know. Because, like, for all we know, what if he saw a vision of Ursulon like killing him? And so his
Yeah.
workaround of this is like, oh no, you're my champion. Like,
Yeah.
or, I'm curious if, and he never mentioned, of course, but like, was Ursulon wielding that sword in the vision? Or was he just being a badass, Because the vision
Yeah.
could have just been of Ursulon, like, end of campaign, if you will, being like Suvi and Ame's champion. And like, that's what he saw a vision of.
There's definitely like this implication of like honor amongst thieves of like, hey, we're brothers, hey, brother. And I would definitely not be surprised if we got like a brutal reveal at some point where like, hey, there's no rules here. Like, I'm going to do whatever I have to do to get what I want done or survive. Because we know also with that, not just like their interactions, but like there's a lot of sort of like unspoken rules or some spoken about how spirits can interact and like what they can do or what they can't do. And I think that is present regardless, but I almost wonder if maybe the stranger leans a little bit heavier on that to make himself be a bit more not like underestimated, but I guess like keep your guard down just a hair. So
Yeah, I could see
I
that.
don't know. But
I was really, like I said, I'm glad Ursulon picked up the sword because, I don't think that really meant anything more than we thought it did. At least I hope it didn't. Plus he got a good gift out of it. And but I am curious about, like, was it purely a respect thing, or were there some of those kind of unwritten rules to where, like, if he had to have bent over to pick up the sword, like, would that have like done something, or meant something or something?
he did make the comment on like, so our debts can be like clean from each other. I'll give you something in return.
Yeah.
And maybe there is something happening there of like being owed a favor. So I don't know. Kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's an interesting way you put it, because he then did owe Ursulon a favor, which is why he gave him the gift.
Right.
So he like intentionally put himself in Ursulon's debt, which is interesting. But again, maybe it's just a big respect thing where he's like, I'm not picking that up. You pick it up.
He knows he can't. He knows he can't pick up the sword. So
Well, I think he can pick it up because he
I don't
can't
think he can.
draw it.
I don't think he can. I think he couldn't, because it was like the next time. I mean, it could be as literal as Brennan said it. Like, the next time I draw this blade. I took it to mean like I physically can't hold it because the next time I do, I will die. And that's why it was like a taboo.
Did he say
thing.
die?
No. I'm assuming death only because it's like what would be like the fate to befall him. It could be anything else.
No, that makes sense. I just was wondering if he said that, because I missed that.
Yeah.
So if that's true, then that makes a lot of sense, because he literally couldn't pick it up. So
right.
But yeah, I'm curious, for those you watching, what y'all's whole pulse on that interaction was. Now I want to go back and listen, because that if that is how it went, then he didn't hand it to him, right?
No.
Ursulon took it off the belt too.
I think he like either unbuckled it so it would like fall to the ground, or Ursulon took it from his waist.
Okay.
I can't remember.
Interesting.
I just envision like this awkward like rebuckle it, and he like can't get it. He's just like standing there.
Wait a minute, my hands, they're big, bare hands. Okay, so all right, two things. How I just mentioned, like, hopefully Ursulon picking up the sword wasn't some secret like unwritten rule. I don't think it was, but what I'm worried about was him sharing a drink with him,
Yes.
especially after
Same.
we find out that's his like symbol,
Right.
the cups. Um,
Ah, I just put that together.
yeah,
Ah, oh
which
man.
I thought about this while I was listening to
Good
the
point.
episode, and I was like, is Brennan the type of DM that would give some sort of hint? Because like he just offers him water and Lou takes it, right? And it was as clean and as simple an interaction as that. And I was like, if there was more to this, would Brennan have like done something to give Lou a clue? Like, "Hey, maybe you shouldn't just drink this, you know?" But I don't know. It just
think
very like fairy tale thing, like sharing
yeah.
a drink or a cup with, like, it just feels like
Yeah.
an
Yeah.
impactful interaction.
I don't know if he had anything in mind, but I could definitely see him being mischievous enough to use it down the road.
Yeah. And even if
So,
that was nothing, the fact that it's a symbol is very interesting to me. Like,
yeah.
what do you make of that? Do you think that that means, like, we know spirits usually have a domain, right? And we know this guy is older than time and has held his breath for eternity. Like, do you think the cup is any type of clue to what his domain is, or it's kind of like adjacent to that?
I don't know. I thought a lot about Captain Endless, and I was trying to remember what Brennan said about her and the insight check that I think is insider history that Suvi got upon seeing the tattoo. And I think it was like people who like willingly give themselves up for
Like
possession or
possession,
control.
essentially, yeah.
Yeah. Which
Which
makes me think his domain's maybe not even just, I wouldn't say just death. It may not even be death. It may be something more interesting, I guess, like control or I don't know what.
actually, now that we're saying this, in Indiana Jones, the like the whichever one where they drank from the cup of life,
Yeah, the third one.
wasn't the really
It's at
bejeweled nice one.
hour and 17-minute mark. I'm just kidding.
I mean the time zone at the age of Brennan would add up to make a kind of interesting illusion like that, but
Yeah.
we're and
But yes, well, the one that was bejeweled is the cup of death.
yeah,
Well, they all were.
that's true.
The humble cup of clay
Right.
was the cup of life or
Yeah.
whatever it was.
Um this just came to me. I don't know if I'm making this up or if I'm actually remembering, but wasn't what Imlis was called a chalice? Or am I making that up?
I don't know. I don't know how direct the name was. I know that the tattoo. I think the phrasing was like identifies this person as a chalice, like almost as a I can't think of the word, but yeah, I think yeah, that's fair. What you're saying.
Which, okay, now I'm wondering, chalice, cup tattoo, he has cups on his armor or whatever. Are all chalices his minions, or do other spirits have chalices? You know?
Do you don't mean literal chalices, right? Like if you're
Well,
eating at the dinner
if
table.
if what I'm calling
Throw it
Imlis's
out.
uh,
Yeah.
Imlis's
Oh,
possession,
yes.
calling that a
Right.
chalice, like, so is every like the person that has that tattoo that's in possessed, are those all because of the stranger, or do other
I
spirits have chalices?
I think it's so the line is so direct from like his clothing to the tattoo that every person with that tattoo would basically be
Hmm.
part of his retinue.
Okay, that makes sense. And then I don't remember with Imlis, was that episode, she was originally attacking Ame, right? And then
Hmm.
Suvi and Ursulon came to help, or was she
That's right.
attacking Suvi and Ame and Ursulon came to help?
No, attacking Ame because she
Okay,
did the strength sucking whatever to Ame.
that's right. Which checks out, right? Because he tried to kill Rin, tried to come to
Right.
the house on the day of her death, and now was
Right.
trying to kill Ame.
Right.
Um, which is interesting. I mean, makes sense. But it's also interesting considering they made that deal of like, I'll see you in a year and a day.
Right.
But I guess that doesn't mean I'm gonna leave you alone till then. But
Right.
I'll see you then for sure.
Right.
So yeah, I didn't expect the drink
Yeah.
symbology. So I'm very curious. And then of course, like we just mentioned, the fact that Ursula shared a drink with him makes me nervous.
I love that you pointed it out though, because I was nervous about the drink, but I didn't put it together about his symbology, I guess. Which definitely makes me nervous.
Yeah, especially
So
since Ursula wasn't really there,
right.
which we don't know how that works, but it seems as if like definitely not a need to drink when it's not even really you. So
Yeah.
curious that the stranger like offered.
Oh yeah, good point actually.
So yeah.
That's right.
Um Also cool that Badze has like a spirit portal in her stomach
Yeah.
or however that works.
Glad it all checked out that, when she was like, "Hey, we're not trying to hurt you," that was the case,
Yeah.
even though Ursula was like, "It really doesn't feel feel great." So, and we have Ame and Suvi heading there to Hukea's Grove, which that could be interesting if they arrive
Yeah.
maybe while Ursulon's being spit out of Batse's stomach.
Yeah,
You know,
how's that going
it's,
to go?
it's not what it looks like.
I get,
So,
I guess like he's going to be chill with them when he comes out. Badze and Sakuro, cuz I mean like I'm
I mean,
curious
what
how that's
choice
going to
does
go
he
actually
have?
cuz I mean he saw them kill Hyrule but like
Yeah.
I don't know. It also very I don't yeah, I'm just very curious about all these dynamics because Hikea clearly didn't know that her retinue was up to this because they're very because Hyrule was even like, does Hikea know you are invoking the stranger's name in her
Yeah.
domain or whatever? Um,
I
so
wonder
that's just
if
you go ahead.
I was just say, I wonder if the stranger's just looking for a champion and not necessarily Ursulon, but like love because there was a comment too about Hyrule of like, "Hey, you'd be good to be his friend too," and Hyrule was like, "Nah, I'm good," and they're like, "All right,
Yeah,
chop your head off." Um, so I mean, and then Batse and Sakura obviously are allied with them, so
yeah, and it also yeah again depending on what that vision was, like maybe it was Ursulon really strong as a champion of Ame, and this is kind of killing two birds with one stone, like become my champion. And
yeah,
this
right,
also de facto supremely weakens Ame, because
yeah,
she no longer has him. Um, which I did think it was one, I can't remember the words to quote him exactly, but thought it was a dope moment when as soon as Ursulon found out that like Ame
yeah,
and Suvi were in danger, he just drops the sword and is like,
yeah.
no. But
No,
I
no, just he was like, "All right, fine."
ask me next
It
week.
is, yeah,
But he interestingly said, I want to kill one for fury and one for sorrow, which
yeah,
this might be the too obvious of an assumption there, but to me, it's Suvi for fury because of
yeah,
the Citadel and Wizards, and Ame for sorrow, which would again play into the whole he was kind of regretful of the fact that he had to
yeah.
kill Rin, and so he would be regretful of the fact that he has to kill Ame as well.
Well, it makes sense too, because if witches keep like have healthy relationships with spirits and like kind of like speak on behalf of them almost, yeah, I could see that too.
Yeah, which we already talked about it, so we don't have to get into it again. But it just again makes me wonder, like, what is it that he saw or that he thinks is going to happen that drove him to need to kill a friend is too strong of a word, but Rin and Ame, like especially if he says it's sorrowful. So I'm just curious what the
I know how is Brennan so good at saying stuff? I'm just like you use words good.
he do be good at them words.
Yeah, I'm just like, dude, like, I
Classic.
use like the same adjective in my DMing. Like, it's very cold and it's a cold room and you see a
Really
cold.
cold.
Yeah, it's so cold. So he's
Yeah,
great.
man, he's too good at it, man. That's his gift.
Yeah, yeah.
Um But yeah, I think that's all I got on the stranger and stuff.
Yeah. Let's move on to old Indri. Indri and the Vandal shenanigans. I love the callback to this item. And the only tragedy is we didn't get more dialogue from Vandal.
Yes.
Very clever. I was wondering what she was doing, but it made total sense after the fact.
Yeah.
Any we didn't get any new information from her tricking Indri, but anything you want to add to that interaction?
The only really thing, this is something we talked about in our last discussion about what that light was in the tower. We still don't know for sure, but this
Right.
episode seems to imply that it was that wand,
Right. Yeah.
which just makes me wonder, like, clearly it's a very powerful artifact. Like, that's the vibe. Why does Indri have it locked away in a tower when Hikea was the one that retrieved it?
And why doesn't Akea seem bothered that she doesn't have it?
Right. Yeah. So, yeah, I definitely I think we talked about this a little bit too. Like I do think, ooh, okay, this is kind of leading me into another point if I can remember to tie this all together. It definitely feels like they're coming after Ame and the world's heart. But I think they might also be kind of subtly coming after Hikea. We got this wand scenario, but then also we know that, and we don't know that Indri is like working hand in hand with the stranger, but they seem to be aligned somewhat. And
Yeah.
since Ikea is in the dark about what her people are doing working with the stranger, it seems like she also is kind of in the dark from everything really going on. And so I'm wondering if this is really a mission to also get rid of her. And the way I'm tying this back around is the interesting comment from the Antivolin, who is like, "You're one of the four great witches." Which the way Ame and Suvi cornered that off was that, like, oh, maybe Indri already told her like that there's only four. But if that was true, then Indri wouldn't have told her about Ame if Ame was who she was
Right.
trying to get rid of.
Right.
So I don't think that makes sense as an explanation, unless she did say there were four and the one she left out was Hikea.
Well, could it also be like a place of like ego? Like four great witches and yeah, there's a fifth one too. Like they obviously don't think much of her. So like maybe and also that line where Ame asked Indri, like, did you have to do any chores? And we have like this kind of look of rage.
Yeah.
Like maybe for her, it's like everything I've been through to attain this status, I'm not going to just casually call Ame a great witch. Like they took it as like, I'm with you that how they kind of parsed it out maybe was a little bit quicker than maybe what Brennan intended. Quicker isn't the right word. Like the direction they wasn't really quite going for. Having said that, the true meaning, I don't know, but I could see like an angle of like there being an immense amount of pride there.
Yeah. And I don't know how much this is worth getting into, because it depends on what, like, does Tefmet's knowledge come 100% from what Indri told her? Because that has its own thing about implications. Or does Antivalists just have different witch lore? And so that's why she thought there were four. But if it comes from what Indri told them, then either it wouldn't have been four, or she shouldn't have recognized Ame at all, because she recognized Ame as one of the four great witches, implying that Ame was one of those four.
I
Meaning
think just
Indri
like,
wouldn't have just discluded Ame because she
yeah,
doesn't think much of her.
I don't know if it's tough. I don't know if Tefmet was like, oh my gosh, you're Ame, one of the four great witches, and so much as like, oh, this is a witch. Oh, you must be one of the four great ones.
That makes sense.
And like indifferent of like physical appearance, I guess.
That makes sense. Maybe she didn't know she was the witch of the world's heart.
Right. So I will say the comment of like, you don't have an S name, which is understandable because like this battle that like wiped out the Antivoli, I could see Tefmet being a bit skittish. But I also wonder like what else could be going on there that's got them so skittish.
Yeah. I would
Go ahead. Let's just say Ame even had the high deception roll and it still didn't
get
a second chance.
Yeah, that's a good point. I would guess that that just was and obviously, but that was her big clue that Ame is like familiar with Citadel witches and or wizards and thought she was one.
Yeah.
Um, and this isn't worth even saying, but Ame knew that they weren't all S names because she's met Pain, Moro,
Right.
but and you know maybe she even was intentionally doing that, like to
Yeah.
probe. But yeah, what do you? I mean, okay.
I
Also on
wonder.
the or go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I wonder the reason the deception check didn't work the way maybe we thought it might. What if this person's like the last remaining Antivalist?
That's what. Yeah, that's what I was wondering as well.
So Ame being like, "Oh, I've known some." Like it's like that's a lie.
No, you
They're all
haven't.
dead.
Yeah,
Yeah, you haven't. But I'll peek my head out and say, "I'm glad for you."
yeah.
Oh,
That's kind of the vibe I got. And one last thing on this four great witches that I just thought of. You know, one of the things we had talked about, and their whole defense plan is like, hey, you can't get rid of just me. You got to get rid of
yeah,
two.
right,
It's interesting that Indri would be saying there's four because then you've got that
right.
problem. So that's interesting. Yeah, why? I mean, why is this Antivalin here? Like, is she like just pitting people against each other? Like, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and clearly they don't like the Citadel and Wizards. So it's like, hey, we'll use any help we can get, and then we'll screw them over too. But I couldn't imagine like long term she actually wants to help Antivalins. Indri, I mean.
Yeah, let me see if the I think there's like a kind of a general wiki. I wonder if the Antivalist is mentioned in it yet. It's not. This wiki quit after chapter 1. So
Bro, I'm
okay, never
so
mind.
sad that I lost my. I don't know if we've ever talked about this on the pod, maybe, but I lost my notes for the first 2 years of our podcast. Because I could have like Google searched Antivoli and it would have popped up like the exact episode.
Yeah.
Ripperino.
I was about to say hey, someone else does like a YouTube on these episodes and they use the Worlds Beyond graphic. And then I was like, oh, this is Worlds Beyond number,
Oh,
actually.
that checks out.
So anyway. Oh man. And naturally some really awful comments. Great. Okay.
Oh,
Well,
really? On the like the official?
yep. It's just
I've actually never looked at their YouTube, but that's weird.
it's so tiny. It's so tiny, but people are just insufferable.
Yeah, they really
Honestly.
are.
Anyway, I don't want to hijack our conversation.
Yeah, I was
Okay,
just gonna
yeah.
say if it's not an enemy of my enemy is my friend type of situation, I'm curious what the angle is there for roping in the Antivalins.
Right. Right. Or the Antivalist if there's
Yeah,
only one left.
true. Yeah.
So um anything else from the sim?
I'm looking through really quick.
I don't got long left on my Elden Ring time for the night, so
oh yeah, how you
I-
how you
it's
liking it?
great.
How
I'm
how many
liking it.
hours would you say you've played so far?
4
Nice.
maybe?
Okay,
I'd
nice.
say I did probably a few hours last night, maybe an hour so far tonight.
Beautiful.
So,
Yeah, I think actually we talked about the big things I wanted to. I'm not seeing anything else in my notes here.
all right. Well, if we forgot anything, just let us know in the comments. Now that I just lambasted YouTube comment, we did the
Not
whole. We
not
did.
our YouTube comments
I
though.
was gonna say we did the whole ring around the rosy with this because we opened talking about how much we love our commenters. But yeah, join the Discord. Tell us what's up.
Yep.
Comment below. And our next video will be our Critical Role Downfall Episode 1 discussion.
Yes, yes.
That'll likely be Wednesday, would be my guess.
Okay.
But we can talk about when we can figure that out.
Alrighty. Well, yeah. Y'all, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you soon. Bye, y'all.